KeithAndrewNetWork. The whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities to never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and still amount to something.
Hi, my name is Robert Bellissimo. I am an acting teacher, YouTube video podcaster, and actor. I was just interviewed by Keith Andrew. We had a fantastic talk about acting and movies and the disability that he lives with, and how people with disabilities can do whatever they want to do and work hard to get there. So it was a great chat. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed doing it.
Welcome to the KeithAndrewNetWork. It is episode 989. That is right, 989. The following is brought to you by 1989. Definitely talk about the year where we were and then on that day in history. But this episode is 989. Today, we sit down with professional actor, professional acting teacher, and YouTuber. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
No, the honor's all mine. So the first question I want to ask you is tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm from Toronto, Canada. I've been an actor professionally for about almost 15 years, but I've been doing it for almost 20 years. I've been teaching for the last 6.5 years. And I started the YouTube channel, which is all about exploring storytelling in movies and interviewing various people who work in film and television. That was like a pandemic project, which turned into something much more serious, similar to what you're doing in terms of interviewing people. So that's basically what I do. Personally speaking, I have an 11-year-old son. I've been married for a number of years, and here I am talking to you.
No, absolutely. So the first thing I want to start off with, do a little change up on my show. Usually I save this for the end, but I'm going to ask you right now. First thing I want to ask is, besides me, obviously, thank you, have you worked with people with disabilities, and how can people with learning disabilities follow in your footsteps?
I haven't formally worked with anyone with disabilities. My wife's nephew has autism, though, so I'm certainly used to being with people who have, at least that I know of, that they have disabilities. How can they follow in my footsteps? I think really just doing what you're doing, just not caring what anyone thinks, if there's any kind of judgment or a stigma, and working hard and proving people wrong, and just treating people with respect and kindness like anyone else needs to, and not being bothered by anyone being uncomfortable around someone who may have an obvious disability, let's say. You just gotta know who you are and love yourself and work hard and not care what others think.
No, absolutely. Now, the other question I want to ask you is, because you mentioned you were a teacher, have you had students with disabilities? Not that I know of, not that anyone told me. I mean, certainly, there may be mental health issues that I knew about. I one gentleman who was bipolar, but yeah, I'm trying to not anything that I knew of. No, not really. Well, if you're interested, I would love to work with you.
Yeah, let me know.
So the next one I want to ask you is the same question about teaching and about acting. What attracted you to begin your career in both of those areas?
Well, I got really interested in acting when I was 16. Initially, I was getting really interested in movies, and then I started to get more interested in how actors would transform themselves and play so many different parts that are nothing like their own personality. And I mean, it sounds cliche because so many people love Robert De Niro for those reasons, but he was a real early influence for me. And I just became obsessed with movies and acting, and I saw as many movies as I could. And then I started to get more interested in theater, and I started doing plays, and I was torn between becoming a filmmaker or an actor, because I really loved, to this day, really love film as well. And I ultimately decided to go to theater school and then go to acting school. And it went from there. But the teaching began to develop because I've always been fascinated with how do actors do what they do, and how are so many actors different? Why is it that these various approaches can lead to similar, truthful type of acting, realistic acting, but yet you're coming from different acting styles or teachers? And I just got really interested in it on a technical level. And when I used to live in England, and I remember at that point the school I worked at, they were also a production company, and I got really close with some of the teachers there, and they really inspired me. Not that they told me to go and teach, but they really got me interested in doing it. And I had dabbled in it a little bit before, and when I moved back home just over 10 years ago to Toronto, I started to do it a little bit more, and then people started asking me to do it. And then from there, I decided to do it privately and set up a class to do it. But that's how it all started. It was started with this inspiration that led to this passion, that led to this deep interest and obsession in a lot of ways. Just a real deep need to do it and to explore it.
No, absolutely. Now, the next question I want to ask you, you mentioned your YouTube channel during the pandemic. Now, Obviously, everyone who listens to this damn thing was over, but hopefully next year or so, wishful thinking, once the pan-coronavirus shot comes out, we can go back to normal. Yes, you're still going to catch it, but it won't be a big thing, because now you have a shot that will kill all the viruses. Not to talk about politics. The reason I bring it up, with everything that you accomplish, do you think that this whole pandemic gave you this little wake-up call, or gave you this little light of acknowledgement of saying, no, I can actually sit back and refocus my life?
That's a great question. I think in some ways it did, because for me, once 2020 hit, I was having some different challenges in my life. I had just found out a few months prior that I had OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and so I was getting better, but I was working with a psychiatrist, and I was getting a lot better. But when everything stopped, it for me, because I'm such a homebody as it is, I could stay home and watch movies and read books all day. So it wasn't nice to not have to worry about with acting, you're chasing jobs a lot. It's such a challenging industry, which led to some anxiety with me. And it was nice to just stop and be able to just breathe and live in the moment and really just worry about my mental health. And as I said earlier, I started this YouTube channel because, like I said, I was always torn between acting and filmmaking. And even over the years, even though I went down the acting route, I did direct some plays and films and short films, and I would always have a lot of ideas for scripts, but I never quite knew where to channel that energy. And that's when it just sort of clicked with me with this channel, with reviewing movies. And I had done some interviewing before, which I really enjoyed, and it became this whole passion that I developed that I don't think I would have found without COVID. Which, I mean, I hate to say that COVID was there was positive things that came from it because so many people suffered so much and still are. But for me, it just happened to turn out that way. So yeah, I hope that answers the question for you.
So you said you have OCD, so that means you're one cool dude.
Hey, I never heard that. I like that. I don't remember that.
No, absolutely. Well, I can tell you all about it. Macho Man Randy Savage was doing an interview with Mean Gene, and Mean Gene's like, "Oh, did you see any medical help?" "Oh yeah, I showed this therapist, and she told me I had OCD, and OCD is one cool dude."
Oh, I didn't know that.
If I find the video,
if the Macho Man said it, there you go.
If I find it, I'll definitely send it to you. It's really funny.
I love it.
Now, the next one I want to ask you is, because you are an actor and you tease, but I'm going to ask you about your YouTube. All those things, what they have in common is entertainment. But
yeah,
you can do all the entertainment till you're blue in the face, and I know I'm a witness of this. What is the hardest part about building an audience?
Oh, that's a great, another great question. I think that the hardest part is probably on YouTube is, for one thing, getting a lot of views, and then getting the subscription count to go up. It's very challenging because there are so many YouTube channels there, and not only YouTube channels, but then you're also competing in a sense with audio podcasts, even though they're different in a lot of ways. But that's the biggest challenge, is how do you get people interested in what you're doing, and then how do you get them to stay interested, and not only that, how do you get them to become fans? So I have found that it's a combination of sharing my passion for films and putting that into videos, and consistently making the videos as well. And then on top of that, we're so lucky nowadays that we have these tools where we can actually go and learn about SEO and how to find topics that we're interested in, that other people are interested in. And there are, TubeBuddy is another source I use a lot, where you can type in, let's say classic Hollywood movie reviews, and they'll tell you if people actually search for that or not. And so that will give me an indication as to whether people, I can share something that people will be interested in, as opposed to just hoping they're going to be interested in it, even though that sometimes can happen too. But I think if that is, and engaging every single day on social media, I actively share in film groups, I actively talk to people, I ask questions, and then about what I'm sharing, so that they'll engage. So it's just every single day working on it, and little by little, it starts to move up. It starts to go forward.
No, absolutely. And my biggest mistake, it wasn't a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake. My goal was to reach 1,000 episodes, and thanks to you, we're 10 episodes away from reaching 1,000. And at the time, I was like, I interview this person, interview that person. I don't care what they are, actor, writers, producers, one after another. I wanted to make a statement of saying, hey, I read and learn at a 5th grade to high school level. I'm on the spectrum of being retarded, but I did 1,000 interviews. Now, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're looking at the downside of that, the pros and the cons. Cons is, okay, you did 1,000 interviews. How many views of each episode is being lost?
Right.
So now once I'm like, 1,000, I hit that mark. Now you will only be re-interviewed if you reach the goal of 100 views. Because I'm like, I don't have the mindset of I have to interview this to get the number. I have the number, but now I'm focused on, if I'm interviewing you, you have to show in that you're 100% devastated. I can't speak it. You are 100% passionate about what you're doing. Like you, if I told you before, I only take people that are very seriously, but I want to support people with disabilities, support me, and in return, I support you. So it's a teamwork. It isn't, what can you do for me? And then you're just gonna ride the wave of success. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, with your everything you did, let me ask you this. When you first looked at my channel, what were some of the mistakes that stood out to you?
Mistakes that I felt you made? Is that what you mean? I can't think of anything that I thought that looked like a mistake necessarily. Nothing I can think of specifically. I could see that the challenge is, because you've had a lot of guests, which is fantastic. I could see that perhaps the challenge with growing it will be because the people are that you're not everybody, because some of them are publicly known, like the actor who was in that Cronenberg film. What's it called? Dead Reckoning. I forget her name again. Heidi. Maybe it'll come to me. Heidi Vaughn. I forget her name. But anyways.
Well, that makes two of us.
It'll come to me. But the challenge will be is how do you get people interested in watching an interview about someone who is not publicly known, unless you're talking about something specific, like if you and I were talking about top 10 greatest wrestlers in WWE, that's it's a more specific topic, so you might get more views that way, but then if you say I'm talking to an actor or a YouTuber, because perhaps they don't have a big public, they're not known as much publicly, that could be a challenge with getting the views. So it's not really a mistake, it's just that I think that perhaps may be a bigger challenge to grow. But if people, on the flip side, if people they already are, because I can see your channel's growing, but the more that people are entertained by you and like what you're doing, and the fact that you're someone with a disability doing this, and it's so impressive and incredible that you've interviewed almost 1,000 people and you're proving so much, and you're sharing value that anybody, no matter what disability you may have, that anybody can do what they want to do. That is something I don't see. So you're doing something that I haven't seen anyone do that, which is great. So I don't I don't see really any mistakes. What I see is mainly what some of the challenges may lie, if that makes sense.
No, absolutely. I don't want to take much of your time about this, but I did want your opinion. We could definitely talk off the air about it.
Sure.
But the next one I want to ask you is, what were some of your greatest achievements? Was there ever a student that you were teaching and you're like, you know what, this person has a bright future? Or have you ever had a student like, this person couldn't teach himself out of a wet paper bag, but I'm not going to give up on them? Was there ever that type of, what the hell am I doing moment?
Well, yeah, I mean, in terms of students, what's impressed me the most has been, I have a number of people who are 50 and up or 60 and up, and they've never acted before, and they had a different career, and now they're retired or almost retired, and this was something that they always wanted to do, but they didn't do it because, for all kinds of different reasons. It could be fear, it could be just falling into different careers, or children, or marriage, or so many things. And what I've been impressed with is that they've come with this attitude of the hell with it, because I mean, to be honest, when you get to a certain age, this industry is already cruel. It could be even crueler for people who are older. But I'm really impressed with how brave they are and how confident a lot of them are, and how confident they are just with talking to anyone at any age. Like, because sometimes if there's a bigger age gap, people can sometimes feel uncomfortable. But I've had so many of them that have really impressed me, and honestly, some of them have become some of the best actors I've taught. And they've been getting a number of roles, either in film or commercials, television. So that has been really mind-blowing to me. And I have had some students who have really struggled, where you get to a point where you feel like you're gonna have to ask them that this is not gonna work out. But there have been some that, those people can either leave on their own because maybe they don't like me or they don't like what I'm teaching, or you get people who don't want to leave. They refuse to leave in a good way because they really want to do this and they really want to learn it. And so that is where I'm like, okay, well, I can see the passion from this person. This is really challenging for a number of reasons. It might slow down the progress of the others, but let's see if we can all work together. And so then you see the support from fellow students, because they can instinctively recognize that this person may be struggling, and so their generosity goes up and my generosity goes up, and things like that. So I've had some occasions like that. But outside of teaching, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind was, nearly 8 years ago, I was really struggling in this industry. I was working, I had a couple of part-time jobs. One of them I had to leave, and I was really having a hard time with money, and I thought, I'm going to have to quit. I'm going to have to do something else, at least for a while. And because I'm stubborn, I didn't quit. And suddenly this job just came that I had auditioned for months prior. And it was just like, something from heaven. It was just something that came at this perfect time, because it got me my union card in Equity, the theater union, which got me my union card in ACTRA, which is the film and television union here in Canada, which then led to other jobs and things where I was able to make more money in order to put food on the table and pay my rent and be able to stay in the industry. So, but it came at a very desperate time. So that's one thing that I'll never forget, because it came at a time when I thought I'm gonna have to walk away. So those are a few things that stand out to me.
No, absolutely. And yeah, that should really, I'm going to go on the record. That's now a hashtag of mine. Hashtag KeithAndrewNetWork. Absolutely. Because I have a habit of keep saying that over and
I say that a lot too when I'm I say that too when I interview people. I don't know why. It's just something that sounds like it's a good word, I find.
Hey, if you're interested, I would love to have you interview me.
Sure. Yeah, we can certainly set something up.
But the question I want to ask you, actually, let me ask you this. There's two questions I want to ask you. First one is, what do you talk about on your talk show? And for people who are interested in working with you, taking classes, obviously you're in Canada, but yeah. Let's ask you the first question. What do you talk about on your talk show?
Well, the YouTube channel it's a combination of film reviews and interviews. So if I bring a guest on for a film review, then we talk that film out. We discuss the characters, we discuss the themes, we discuss how they told the story. Was it easy for an audience to digest, or was it a much more challenging film, emotionally challenging? Is it something that requires repeat viewings because it's very complicated or detailed? And so we the cinematography we discuss, the editing, we talk it out for an hour, if not more sometimes. And then I will bring on a guest who I have a lot of people who come on who have written books books, film books, biographies. So I'll get the book, I'll read the book, and then I'll interview them about the book. Or if they are someone who have a career I'm interested in, or I feel people will be interested in hearing about, I will interview them about their career, very similar to what you're doing. So editors, actors, writers, filmmakers, things like that. So that's generally how the channel goes.
No, I agree. And now, how can people take classes? Do you have an actual building? Are you on Zoom? Do you charge them?
Yeah, it's all on Zoom. Before the pandemic, it was in a studio here in Toronto, but once everything shut down, like anybody else who wanted to keep teaching or acting, that is, I went online, and so I'm still online, even though things are pretty much opened up. But I have people from different cities, so that's why I'm still online. But I've actually found that there's been a lot of benefits to being online, and a lot of people like it. It has its pros and cons, but it's pretty effective. So I teach right now only online, and people can find me at my name, bellissimo.ca. All the information is there. Or you can find me on Instagram. It's at actor_teacher there. And then I have a Facebook page, which is, if they put fb.me/Meisner Toronto, because I teach this specific class called Meisner technique. They can find more information there. So that's how you can get in touch. And you do 4 classes. If you like those 4 classes, you can keep doing 4 classes, which is 1 unit every single month. And if people need to stop and come back, it's pretty flexible, but that's generally how it goes.
You just gave me a great idea, and I wish there was a way we can capitalize on it. And then, by the way, anyone who's listening that takes it, I take credit for it. You talk about school, and you talk about broadcasting. There's always acting classes online. Why not do classes online for people who want to be a wrestling announcer or broadcast announcer? Why couldn't it be someone who's like, I've been in the business for 50 some odd years. Now I'm going to give 3 classes. Maybe 2 classes will be free, but then you have to pay, obviously. But I will give you the ins and outs, what to do if you want to be an announcer. That would be something people would love to do, instead of this whole horse and pony show. They're gonna hook, line, and sinker, tell you everything that you want to hear, and at the end stick the nail in the coffin and say $6,000, $2,000. Why can it be one person, just one, that says, you know what, I'm gonna break that stigma or of that label of saying I'm not asking for money. I'm gonna help people that really deserve it, because you can pay all the money you want, you can have all the talent you have, but if you're not going to carry yourself as a professional person and have the heart and character in what you do, then that's going to show in your work. For me, definitely. I have my emotions on my sleeve. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes that's a bad thing, but at least it shows you if this person has the passion, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with giving it an opportunity. But what is your opinion? Do you think that's a great idea? Have like a broadcast online free trial class or something?
Yeah, I never thought of that. I think that is a good idea for people who want to get into, let's say, hosting or broadcast, television hosting, broadcasting, like you said, sports announcing. I hadn't thought of that. I wonder if anyone's doing something like that. But you're right. I mean, in terms of money, I mean, I make them as affordable as I can, because they are very expensive. I'm not saying that teachers don't deserve to get paid well, but I know that actors often don't have a lot of money, and I want to offer them something so that they can keep coming, not spend a lot of money and then they can't come for like 6 months or a year. I try to give them something where they can keep coming and not be empty-handed at the end of the month. So yeah, that's how I approach things. And like you're saying, it's having the passion and looking at it in terms of what can I do for you. It's not about me. It's about what can I do individually to help this person with whatever they need. So I think if you can focus on that, people will feel it.
No, I agree. Now I have a couple questions for you off the air. But wrapping up, this will be shared on social medias. But it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. Our goal is to reach 100 views, and once we hit our goal, we can definitely do part 2. If there's ever any events coming up for the Keith Andrew Network, you are more than welcome to join. But until we meet again, it was a real honor and privilege, and catch you later.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, the honor's all mine. Thank you, and have a good night.